For those of you that are enjoying this discussion who want a little bit of additional information, you may be saying, what are these libertarian guys about? You know, what would government look like under a libertarian society? There's a couple of things you can do. I'm going to ask Phil to actually give some local meeting information here in just a minute, but you can actually go to the website, which is www.jaxlp.org to always find out about current events. And the National Libertarian Party website is www.lp.org. A lot of good information on there about what libertarians stand for. I encourage you to check it out. Phil, why don't you tell the folks about what's going on here locally?
We're having a very special meeting. I believe it'll be next Thursday, August the 19th. It's our regular meeting time, third Thursday at 6:30. We're having it at a different meeting place because we expect a larger than normal crowd, because we're having a special speaker about the fully informed jury association, FIJA. So please come on out to that. It's going to be at the Piccadilly on the west side. It's on Ramona Boulevard. Take I-10, take the lane exit, your first light, take a left. It's kind of right behind Bono's. So we look forward to people coming out to seeing that. Other than that, we normally meet at the Golden Corral, and we'll resume our normal meetings the next coming months.
Right, and if people need to see that information, they can go to lpjax.org and find that?
Well, it'd be better to go to our meetup group. If you just go to meetup.com and put Jacksonville Libertarian, join the group. We don't update our regular website as often as we should, but we also have the details on our phone number and on Meetup.
Okay, fantastic. All right, well, let's switch gears a little bit, Phil, and let's focus on a couple of local issues here. One that's just hot off the press in terms of this just happened last night in terms of the City Council approving the naming rights for what is now known as Everbank Field, formerly known as Jacksonville Municipal Stadium, formerly known as Alltel Stadium. We've got an overhead that we'll put up around this. With the Jaguars stadium deal, as you can see, the progression of names there at the top. This is something the Jags have not had a named sponsor for several years, so I know that there was a lot of pressure and a lot of anxiety around getting that done, particularly given talk about the future of the Jaguars in Jacksonville. Basically, this stadium naming deal, Everbank will pay a little over $16 million over 5 years. And by the existing contract that's in place, the city of Jacksonville was eligible for 25% of that amount, so $4 million over that 5 years. There was a motion made to actually void that part of the contract and ignore it. That did get approved by the city council, 14-3, with the 3 votes being in favor of maintaining those monies, being John Crescent-Benny, Clay Yarbrough, and Ronnie Fussell. So thanks to those individuals for standing up for that. And of course, some good local opposition by our concerned taxpayers of Duval County friends, who actually showed up to the city council meeting with some Team Taxpayer shirts on to offset the Team Teal effort. Now, I have to admit, I am a big sports fan. I'm a big Jaguar fan. I've been a season seat holder since day one. I've even been involved in the Team Teal effort. However, I do not think that it's the role of city government to provide tax dollars for things like a pro football team and a pro stadium. So I do draw a pretty firm line there. I was disappointed to see this vote, Phil, because, at a time where our city budget is incredibly strapped, they're closing libraries, they're talking about cutting firefighter and other public safety jobs. Is this a good time to leave $4 million on the table from a contract that is already agreed to and in place?
It's kind of ridiculous. And yeah, to the people out there, that's $4 million that could have been used to keep the library open, maybe to help keep you from having your taxes raised because they keep going up. And yes, doubling your solid waste fee, that's a tax hike. It just shows you, where are these people's priorities? What are they thinking about? I don't know what they're thinking about, but they're not really in touch with the average voter. And we implore people, run for city council. We need people that are going to represent the people's view instead of the people we have now.
Absolutely right, absolutely right. And continuing on with a discussion of a local issue, we have an overhead we're going to put up around this, Phil, around what we're calling a future for the Soil and Water Board. The board is seen as an advocate and educator on conservation and erosion control issues. There's some people who basically said that this board's time has passed it by, that as Florida and particularly Jacksonville has become more urbanized, there's less of a need for that. And the current board actually did have a 3-2 vote, a recommendation to the Commissioner of Agriculture, Charles Bronson, to actually dissolve that. There's been a denial of that motion for right now. because there's a need for a public hearing and a secondary board meeting to actually review this process, and there's some concern about how much that might cost. So, Phil, give us a little bit of background. You're a candidate for the Soil and Water Board, and I take it you're in support of actually dissolving this board.
Yeah, that's a part of why I chose to run. Myself, Stuart Coffin, Skinner, we're all running under the same platform. We believe that Jacksonville families can't afford a new tax, and our current board is running very low on money, and you've got a choice: dissolve the board or have them raise taxes to keep the board open. And really, the EPA and the St. Johns River Management District cover about everything you would think the Soil and Water Board does. And also JEA, for those people who think, I don't like my tap water, I want the Soil and Water Board to take care of it. No, they don't do that.
Right.
We've
actually got one more overhead that we're going to put up here, just to, kind of asking this question about whether it's to be or not to be. Hopefully we have that overhead there. It's been pretty extensively covered in the Jacksonville paper. Isn't it an interesting story, Phil, about how hard it is to actually try to close a government office of any type at any level?
They don't know how to do it because with Republicans and Democrats running our government, it's never been done, so they don't know how. I think they wanted to keep the board open, but when I was sending emails to the people responsible for closing it, a lot of it was, we aren't exactly sure how to do that because we create programs, we don't close them down.
Absolutely right, absolutely right. And believe it or not, Phil, we're actually kind of winding down to the end of the broadcast here, but we do have one more overhead to put up, our regularly occurring feature that we call Government Abuse of the Month, and unfortunately we are never at a shortage of topics for this particular slide. And for this month, by far and away, the winner, Charlie Crist in his special session of the Florida legislature, which estimated to have cost between $40,000 to $50,000 for a meeting that lasted less than 1 hour, where Charlie Crist wanted to convene the legislature to pass a constitutional amendment banning oil drilling off of the Florida coastline. Somebody probably should have told the current governor that the current state law does prohibit drilling within 10 miles, and the legislature, I think quite rightly, did not want to rush into something, and they wanted to, if they were going to pass any additional laws, they wanted to have time to think about it. This was a measure done to score political points and to try to help Charlie Crist solidify his ties with the left-hand side of the electorate. What's your take on this, Phil?
I just hope the taxpayers don't buy it. It's ridiculous. I mean, I want there to be cars that run on water or solar, but banning oil, give me a break. Banning oil drilling, what are you supposed to do? This is what we have currently.
Yeah, absolutely right. And, unfortunately, Charlie Crist has never been one to shy away from doing things just for pure political posturing kind of purposes. So, unfortunately, perhaps not too much of a surprise there.
Yep.
All right, well, Phil, thank you so much for joining us on today's broadcast, and we will look forward to seeing you on the next show.
Absolutely.
Again, we thank you so much for tuning in to the Libertarian Perspective. Our show does air Wednesdays at 7 o'clock here on Comcast Community Access. It's also repeated at other times throughout the broadcast schedule, so as you're channel surfing, if you see us, we appreciate you tuning in. You can go to the website, which is www.jaxlp, also the meetup group that Phil mentioned, and we appreciate you tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you next time on the Libertarian Perspective.
Exclusive programming for Comcast subscribers.